Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's Jennifer O'Massery. So I just wanted to do this video about leasing and why you should most likely lease your horse before you buy a horse. So leasing is less of a commitment than buying. There are different types of leases, obviously, that I've seen out there. There are some leases where, you have to actually put like a percentage down, and there's some leases where, the owner wants $13,000 down, or there's some leases where you technically don't put any money down. But I actually did one lease one time, so that's why I can speak from my experience, where I did put a down payment down for my horse, and I had to actually pay for his monthly board and then everything that went along with it. I had to pay for his vet bills, I had to pay for his shoeing bills, I had to pay for his deworming bills, which is not a big deal to, basically buy a dewormer. But anything he needed during the course of the year of leasing him, I had to get. So what I found from leasing is it's an excellent experience. Now, I'm not talking about just a regular basic lease where, you're just gonna ride the horse for like 2 times a week and you're not responsible for anything. I'm talking about like a full-blown lease. And this is one where you're responsible for everything. And the only reason why I say this is good compared to the other leases out there is because you really get to see, is this having a horse, is this for me? Do I really enjoy this? Is this something that I want to have? Is this something like I want to be a part of? And it kind of gives you the I guess the experience of having to deal with the vet also, because during my experience of leasing my horse, I actually had to call the vet, I would say 2 or 3 times. So I did have vet bills. I did have 2 or 3 vet bills for, this horse. And one being, it was a colic. It was like, he really didn't colic, but it was like a colic, so I paid for that. Another one being he was a little lame. I paid for that. Another one being where he was very lame. I had to pay for that. And it was nothing that I did. It had nothing to do with me or anything like that. It just had to do with him and just the workload that he was doing. I don't want to say it was too much for him, but like for whatever reason, he couldn't handle that workload. So I guess that contributed to those factors. But anyway, it was a process that I had to go through, and it actually made me a better horse owner at this point in time, because it took away all my fears of dealing with having the vet. It let me look at what the vet bills would look like if I had a horse, and also, having to pay that monthly board every month, and then having to worry about, making sure my horse has his teeth done, every year, which I did that as well. And that is just a couple of things. I actually also, on top of him, just leasing him, I did put him on supplements. And at the time, I believe that was an extra $100 a month for supplements, because after the vet had came, he's like, hey, maybe you should put this horse on a probiotic, just to help him with digestion and so forth. I'm like, probiotic? What's probiotic? He's like, well, I recommend the brand Succeed. I'm like, okay, it's a paste. Well, guess what, folks? Succeed costs about $125 to $150, depending on where you get it from. Okay, so we started him on that. So you see where I'm getting here? Sometimes leasing is the best way to go, because you really get the full experience of having a horse. And what happens? Another example, that I can tell you what happened when I was leasing was, before I had gotten him, we wound up taking off his pads, because the owner was like, oh, he's fine, you can take off the pads. I'm like, okay. We figured he only needed them for the trails, with the rocks and stuff, and since the footing was really good in the place I was at, that it shouldn't be an issue. Well, guess what? 6 weeks later, I wound up putting the pads back on. Another expense. I had to call the shoer back. We had to add the pads. I mean, it wasn't like the cost of his shoeing, but you had to pay for his service, and for him to come down and put the pads on. So that was another experience I had. And another experience being having the vet come and bring spring shots, having the vet come bring fall shots, I'm sorry. At the time, I had never experienced that. I didn't even know what the cost was going to be of spring and fall shots. Well, we had that done. Another $100 to $150, okay? You see where I'm getting at. But, I didn't mind it because I was prepared for any kind of thing that was going to come my way, any kind of payments or anything. I was prepared. So with that being said, leasing is always, in my opinion, the best option for anybody who is not sure if they want to have a horse, because you can always give it back to the horse owner. You can always call the horse owner if you're having issues or difficulties, and you can ask them what to do. I mean, when you own your horse, it's a little bit more difficult to solve a problem sometimes, because it's like you are the sole person. You can't give it back. You have to fix the problem. If your horse colics and you need colic surgery, you better hope that you either have a colic care program, or you have some sort of insurance, or you have something, because just to bring your horse to one of these big facilities is very, very expensive. People don't think about these other things that go along with just having a horse. Another thing that I experienced through leasing, which was great, is, he came along with a couple of blankets, but I had to buy my own. And it gave me the chance to just, learn a little bit more about blanketing in the winter. It gave me a chance to learn about, what is needed, what kind of blankets to buy versus, which ones not to buy, because I actually went through a trial and error. I would order a bunch of blankets or sheets or whatever it might be, get them in, and I put them on him and trying to size him, and I learned all about sizing at that point. And I was like, oh wow, I don't like this material on him, or this doesn't fit well, or I like this, or this blanket held up compared to this one. So that was another learning curve I had, just through leasing. Leasing on its own gives you so much information. I can't even express to you how much information you get, because it's like I said, if you really do it all in, it's like owning the horse. The owner is in the background, of course, cheering you on and helping you through it. But it's an excellent experience if you're thinking about having a horse, because then it really shows you where you're at and if you can do this. Because another thing that people forget is, let's say, you go and buy a horse, for yourself, and let's say this horse is a little bit more for you to handle than you can handle. Are you prepared to give it some sort of groundwork? That's the next question. Are you prepared? Do you know how to do groundwork? Are you scared of this horse? Is this something that, is maybe too much for you? Well, guess what? It's not like a leash. You can't give it back to the owner and say, listen, I'm sorry, keep the money I put down, but this is not the best, horse for me. Maybe I should find something else. At this point in time, you could be calling up the person you bought it from and hoping that they'll give you a refund, which is like slim to none sometimes. Most of the time, you're just sitting there and you're just trying to sell off the horse and give it to somebody else. So back to leasing again. Leasing is, in my experience, the best option there is. As long as you sit here and really take it on in the way that you want to get to the point where you want to learn from the situation. If you just want to just hack once in a while, just go for a little joyride, then yeah, go lease twice a week, something like that, where there are no ties to shoes, no ties to anything like that. Yeah, go right ahead. But if you're looking for a real experience where you're really going to get an authentic I'm trying to find the right word, just a real experience, an authentic experience, leasing is the best way. Another thing is, you have to put into consideration, what if you're leasing and all of a sudden, your horse is always sweaty all the time and so forth, and then you just decide, well, maybe I should clip my horse. That's another thing. That's another expense. You're going to probably have to ask the owner, is it okay to clip him? Have I ever clipped him? And I actually went through that as well. That's another experience that I had with my horse, where I actually asked the owner, I'm like, listen, have you ever body clipped him? Because he's kind of sweaty, you know, in October, November, and I'm riding him, he's kind of sweaty. She's like, I never did. I'm like, okay. So I didn't do it because I just didn't want to have that responsibility. Well, guess what? I bought him, I own him. We clip now in November now. He gets clipped whether he likes it or not. So these are some things to sit here and to, you know, think about and learn and do. So my suggestion to you is lease your first horse. Please subscribe and like my channel because it gets it out there to other viewers. Thank you. Bye.